Oh, well, once again, no coffee, but we figured we'd give you some kind of consistency because we're not completely chaotic here.
This is sad.
I know. Hey, that actually looks really good. Anyways, sorry. Distracted already? Good afternoon, Misfits. Glad to be back with you this Monday evening. Well, afternoon.
Don't do that to me.
I
can't handle that.
Listen, I haven't had coffee, and I still don't have coffee, so my brain is not firing. But it is I, once again, the Mad Chazzler, sitting in behind the blackened BAD microphone. That is the Brilliance at Debriefing microphone.
I like it.
Sitting in the driver's seat, debriefing to you live from a discreet location that is not my parents' basement.
Thanks, Mama J, for the cookies.
Eddie, you're back one time, and you're already trying to mislead these people into thinking that my mom let you in.
This is why we can't have nice things.
I know.
I'm sorry. I forgot. It's been a while.
But you hear him, you love him. It is our in-live studio audience, Smoke Master Eddie.
Woo!
Working on some new things. Brought in some trial barbecue sauce for us to try. I loved it all.
It's pretty good.
I guess I'm just a sauce kind of guy. I mean,
You're a saucy kind of boy.
that one. I guess when you grow up poor and you can't really afford fine dining, you just kind of learn to make do with sauces.
That's how barbecue started.
Hey, there you go. Now you have it. And you see him in the upper right corner. The camera always flips it, so I don't know which way. You see him in one of the corners. He is sitting in the gunner seat, Big Bad Jon, firing off comments like a champion.
How we doing, Misfits?
What are you brewing up for the show today?
So we're brewing up some aged Nicaraguan.
Ooh,
just to go ahead and give it a shot. We've been we don't do anything standard, so tossing around random ideas. We're trying to see what an aged coffee would come out to be.
You know that.
I mean, that's living up to the name of, Misfits. We
It's what we do.
Misfitting things around.
Mm-hmm.
It's a misfit in your cup.
I don't say it's gonna obviously since our coffee sommelier has a genetic disposition towards profits and more money. We would offer a age thing for you hoity-toity people. Well, I don't want to say it like that because I don't want to. For you people who truly like just absolutely fancy things, aged coffee.
Or experimenting.
Yeah, that too. We're gonna experiment with it and then offer an adder for the ability to age things, which normally isn't a good thing. Aging's a byproduct of sin, so.
It's true.
Oh no, an aged steak is great.
Aged bourbon is also great.
Yeah.
So.
That too.
Anyways.
Aged people, not so much.
Oh, we got a good one. Like the topic. Big Bad Jon's over here flying blind. He knows the topic, but it's so vague and how I've described it. He's just kind of. So you're gonna see his raw reaction.
I got no debriefing of my own for this one, so I'll be hearing it for the first, just as y'all are. But that's how I like to fly anyway.
I mean, in full fairness, I didn't really think of like the best way to really present it. It's just I have all of this information in front of me, and I just want to talk about it. So I kind of we'll get into that. But first, before we can get into that, we have to address the coffee news.
Coffee news.
That's not funny. I want coffee.
It's just about done. Hold your horses.
I will not hold
Holster
my
your
horses.
pistols.
It's got
Okay.
a bloom.
All right, but before I do that, I guess I should put on my thinking cap.
Where did you get that thinking cap?
You see it? It is now freshly in, new Misfit Militia gun range caps. We have them in navy blue. We have them in black, so you can see the difference there. And we have them in khaki. Now you can sport with great boldness the Misfit Militia brand.
When did this get on my... Oh, I got one of those too.
And it even fits on my big old head.
There you go. It fits on a giant's head. It fits on a regular guy's size head. It even fits over yarmulkes, as you see
true.
with Big Bad Jon.
I'll say the thing we always talk about with the hats, but I was really appreciating today throwing the headphones on. No nub on the top, being that it's a shooter's cap. There's nothing digging into my head. I love it every time.
That's the thing about our caps. They're specifically chosen for comfort on the range. And especially, you sit there and you say, well, you don't really need a hat for shooting. If you're shooting outside, you do. I don't know anyone who's tried to do competition. I noticed it. I once competed in a high-powered rifle match, and boy, I tell you what. If you do not have something to block the sun from your gaze, and like I'm not talking sunglasses ain't gonna cut it. Like you need something to actually bridge the gap between your scope and your eyes. And if you don't have that, it's a pain. So to have caps like these, fantastic. Especially I know Smoky Bottom Gun Club, which meets in a Hornbeak gun range. They have competitions first Saturday of the month. They are a lot of fun. If y'all are interested, I can get you a address. I don't have it in front of me right now, but we can get you an address for that. It's a lot of fun. But these would really come in handy just
for such an occasion.
I'll say keep the sun out of your eyes. Sweatband cap to so you get the sun out, the sweat out. You have comfort, and you're over there showing off your John Wick skills for everyone to see. So
And you look dang cool in it.
You know that's right.
the benefits are endless. We're talking about high return for just $25. I mean,
Nothing.
It's like Nerf. Well, no, because it's not. Never mind. I don't know.
It's like something. It's like something that's worth something.
Yes, something that's worth something. So, come out, get your new shooter's caps.
And we do know y'all have asked for the flat brim hats and the trucker hats and a couple different ones. We are still looking into them. It's just we've had a pretty good demand and request for these hats, especially with, as we'll continue to be announcing for the next couple weeks, our partnership with the range. Things like shooter's caps, it fits right in. So you're gonna see a bit more of these before we start getting to the truckers hats.
John, who or what is the range?
Well, I'm glad you asked, live studio audience, Smoke Master Eddie. The range is the wonderful facility out in Jackson. No, I'm not gonna do the whole talk real fast thing. Wonderful range out in Jackson. We can't talk about them or gloat about them enough. We finally got to have last week our first official setup with them, as they're doing all of their shooting matches. They're not all the same one, so I believe this coming week is Action Rifle on April 30th. Yeah, which is going to look a lot different than what we just had, which is really an intro to shooters match, which I will say, I mean, epitome of everything we talk about. Older folks, middle-aged folks. There was a kid, I believe he was 11, that was there shooting. And he had enough discipline. He was holstered. If he wasn't actually on the range, it was in his holster. Hands were off even when he drew. Like, kid knew what he was doing. And it was all just the first hour was geared towards teaching folks, just refining some shooting technique and teaching them how a competition would go. And then the second hour was them actually getting to compete against each other and just newbie versus newbie. Just so you could kind of get that adrenaline feeling going, learn to compose yourself when you're under a timer trying to stay on target. We met a lot of wonderful folks we haven't seen before, some we haven't seen in like a year. It was a really good time.
Well, and I can say this just off of logical conclusions. For one thing, if you are one of those that is interested in mitigating some of the blast and making it a little easier on the airs, they have all the stuff there to do that at the range, so a reason to go to them, especially because they do the fingerprinting in-house. So you don't need to go have your fingerprints done here. I know I looked into it once, and that was the one thing that stopped me from both becoming an FFL dealer and getting a stamped short-barreled suppressed rifle. The headache that it was to try and get myself fingerprinted over here. So they do away with all that. You can do it all through them. You can deal with that, get fingerprinted, all that. So a reason to go there. But given that they're that involved with the ATF, if they're going to hold a competition like this where you have that liability of an 11-year-old running around with a firearm, they're going to spend a lot of time talking about safety. I can just promise you that. And
that's all. That's the very as we talked about. If y'all didn't catch the live we had with them last Tuesday evening, they don't even start anything on the range or even walking towards the doors to get to the range until they go to a separate room and brief on safety. It's first and foremost. They truly do stand by all their safety protocols, and even with regards to, just as we have to know as business owners still, unfortunately, things ATF standards, all those. I mean, they've been to conventions with them. They understand what has to be done for you to have a safe and proper experience.
Yeah, and I was gonna say they have their own sommelier there. He is more like the John Wick sommelier.
Yes.
Expert in firearms. Sounds like he can handle himself really well on a range or in a competition match.
He can handle himself well on a range, and he's got a good affinity for collections of kinds.
Which I'm willing to bet he probably already lost them all in a boating accident.
I'm sure. Guaranteed. He's also named Jonathan, also loves to talk. It's weird.
I would say if you haven't watched the live on our page, go over and watch it sometime this afternoon. Because it's funny. You see Jonathan and Jonathan having a conversation about two of the greatest things that we enjoy in America, guns and coffee. So.
And Travis, hello to you too. So Travis just dropping in to give us a hello, talking about the quote-unquote lemon bean water, which, yes, for those of y'all who do, as Mad Chazzler was saying earlier, if you like your kind of fancier stuff, if you want it, if you're just looking for something for yourself, we will take roasts on request. If you want to buy a batch, we'll add the flavoring as you need it. Can't do a lot of the grinding here for that. Can do some of it, but really that's going to be a thing where you're going to want to have your own grinder, just because we don't want to mess with our industrial grinders for the stuff that we put out regularly. But if you want to try something crazy like lemon infused or anything like that, you let us know.
Mm-hmm. We'll make it happen. We got a coffee sommelier for that reason.
Where?
Not just good.
Oh, that's me too. Right. I'll go back to drinking my coffee. Coffee.
That's probably a good idea. Anyways, and with that, because we spent all this time talking about it, August 3rd is the day of the event. It is a Saturday.
Yes.
So now there's extra reason for you to come out. Nice thing to do. Saturday with the family. Grab your kids. Grab your significant other. Go out and be able to teach your kids about gun safety. If your wife is maybe she doesn't want to get into it, but she's like, okay, well I'm willing to try anything once. I'll go. I don't really want to, but I'll do it. You can bring her out. They're especially looking forward to that. They're looking for people who maybe want to get into it and don't know where to start, or people who are just afraid and are willing to at least be open-minded to it. Those are the people they want, because if you go with them, they are going to teach you how to handle it safely, all the proper things with it. And I promise you, when you actually understand firearms and the safety behind it and the things you can do to make sure you don't discharge it in the house, it really isn't that scary.
No.
In fact, the scarier thing then becomes just understanding that if someone comes to threaten your life, we watch all these. We watch CSI. We watch New Detective. I watch New Detectives, FBI Files. We watch
Forensic
these things
Files.
that are around Forensic Files and murder and all this stuff. But it's a lot different when it's a real life thing, and that's really the scariest thing. Like, even for me, that's the scary thing for me. I was watching one the other day where guy saw a fire burning and he called 911. He's like, is that fire in there? End up getting killed. And I sat there thinking, like, man, you sit there and say, well, okay, that was a one-off. Well, yes, but it happened. A guy got murdered just for calling in a fire that the murderer didn't want being found out, and so he killed him.
Which is just it's nuts, and that threat. Something I wanted to point out real quick too from our chat with the range on Tuesday evening. If you notice, the live was not 4 guys; it was 2 guys and 2 girls. It's men and women, and so it's not just your local misfits who tout women standing behind a firearm. It's one of the things we love is they understand that need just as much, if not more so, for women when it comes to something in the house where someone's coming to beat down the doors. If you, it's biology as it stands. If it's going to be fist to fist, the man's going to have the advantage. If you stick an equalizer, at one point Jonathan had mentioned having the equalizer, and it just warmed my heart. There's a certain fondness I have about that word when it comes to protecting life and leveling that playing field.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the biggest thing, is because it's, even if you say, well, it's not an equalizer, it makes it unfair in your front. Yes, because life should be protected.
Yeah.
Life should be protected. I mean, it's ironic to me that a lot of people that stand against gun safety also are willing to let the entire economy shut down and a lot of people be plunged into poverty for the sake of saving And what we knew at the time already, statistically, old people.
Yep.
Life should be protected. Now, that's where it's like that's where it's a thing of it should be protected from evil. And yes, to an extent, from ailment, if we can help it. Yeah, we should want to help if we can, but not to the point where we're going to destroy everyone else's lives just so people can not die. Because the unfortunate reality is, and it stood before COVID, it stands after COVID. Death rate is 1 per person.
Man, we apologize, y'all. It's hard to just bring announcements when all of the announcements are mixed with things that we are passionate about.
Yes, that is very true. So we were talking about the range, we're talking about that. We sneaked at it last week, and now it is live and ready to go. So here it is, your QR code. You can come in, you scan that, and you have your competition brewer for your match grade coffee.
And man, as you can see, we're still rocking it today. I didn't want to take up the whole camera with it, but here you go. And we've been throwing every origin through it just to try everything. One other thing we've got to mention with it is if you go ahead and purchase it through us, you bring us back your order. Let us see that you got it through us. First, I think we're starting with just 5 filters at first, but first 5 filters on us. You come on in, you get
Savings.
some. Yes. Because we can do all that ourselves because we want to be a one-stop shop. So let us know you got it. Come on in. We'll set you up with filters, and then you can even buy some more.
Eddie, death is the ultimate equalizer.
I mean, he's not wrong. He's
not
wrong.
I'll say you can be as great as you can be strong like Samson. You can be wise like Solomon. You can be smart like Einstein. But at the end of the day, they're all
built like Goliath.
Yeah, you can be built like Goliath, but at the end of the day, at the end of time, you will be in the ground, decaying, and your spirit will then stand before judgment.
Yeah, so doesn't really help you too much.
And to take a step back real quick and throw my hat in the ring, your Footmaster General will be at the range on the 3rd, providing barbecue sandwiches and your delicious smoked cream cheese.
So y'all come on out. There's gonna be so much good stuff. So much.
Come get it. I tell you, I've had a lot of smoked cream cheese. Actually, no, I've had a lot of barbecue in my life, and when they say his is the best, it's absolutely the best.
It is.
Okay. No one does it better. Some say it's possibly the greatest. So come out and get some. Okay. All right. Sorry, that was impromptu try. I normally can do better, but not this time.
I appreciate you.
That's my fault. I'm the one who kept the coffee held back a little bit.
All right. And then we're gonna try and get more thing with this. We have our new vinyls in. So
those are so clean. I feel like I can't even see. Oh wait a minute. Okay.
Come out and get it. If you can't tell what it is, then that just means you need to come in and see it. that was more to be funny, but it is a new vinyl. It is the distress flag, and instead of saying "We the People," it says "We the Misfits." That way, people know that this is more than just, because you see them all out in the car, and it's like, oh yeah, another two-way guy. No, we're gonna make it our own "We the Misfits," because even people that say that they're constitutionalists aren't really, well, actually no, people who say they're for freedom aren't really. They're just for government tyranny in their direction, which is not the place you want to be.
So I'm sure y'all saw too. We've got the new vinyl on the truck. So, courtesy of Mad Chazzler. So, vinyls those are the 2 big things we're seeing coming into this almost summer now. 3 things: hats, vinyls, and soaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say our vinyls, we actually, for the amount we've made, we don't have many left. We got a couple hiding back there from randoms, but you'll be seeing an increased production in them, as well as soaps, because our basket, y'all have been going a little nuts because we're actually almost out again.
Yeah.
So we just delivered 4 this morning to a customer. So now we are, So thank y'all, and duly noted, we will keep them running.
And
I don't enjoy my soap. I got the GSW. at the
GSR?
house.
Oh, gunshot residue. Wonderful.
I use that one. I finally, Princess Magpul made us some test samples, and I kept forgetting. I finally got up there, and now I use that because the scent is unbeatable and the clean feel is phenomenal. So,
hey, Princess Magpul, to be fair, I was coming to let you know that after today when I walked in this morning and noticed, oh yeah, 4 more bars.
stuff.
Yeah, we're running low. So yeah, that's you're welcome.
I think that's all I got for coffee news.
That's about all that I've got.
All right. Well, and I guess that brings us into the debrief discussion of the week. I just get to spread. I gotta put my hands a little bit lower. Okay. All right. So
Hand motions.
yes. So today, and I believe the title is moral or law, and like I said, I know the abstract of what it is that it really was looking to bring to you, but kind of diving into it further, really what this is rooted in. If any of you have really engaged in apologetics to the degree that I have, one of the things you know that is it's something that we have the ability to press on that I don't think enough Christians do, is just the idea of morality.
Well, let's define apologetics real quick. I'm not sure if everybody knows the term.
So if everyone knows, it's not sitting there saying sorry to everyone for being Christian. It's not sitting there apologizing for everything. But apologetics is, because I think it's logos, which is logic. And so it's essentially it's the defense or defending your faith is the short term, but presenting the logic of why what you believe.
The way I've always thought about it is more of a court style defense of the word, as opposed to it's you're going less with the feelings of the heart and more of this is the thing written on paper and these are the facts inscribed into the world that prove my point.
Yes, it's applying it just from a logical perspective, because most people don't realize this. Like, people throw around science as if it's a thing. Science doesn't actually prove anything. It's the thing that the thing we use for proof is logic. Logic is what derives truth. Logic is where we get truth, because even the science, what they're talking about is data, but data doesn't prove anything. It's the logical explanation. It's the logic of, okay, this is the experiment I ran. This is how I ran it. These are the variables I controlled. These are the variables I didn't. These are the variables I switched to see what the ramification is. And it's the logic behind it is which we derive truth. The data itself is just the data. It's
the evidence. It's like a crime scene. You can have everything that points to the killer, but unless you logically connect the dots, you don't know who it is. You have to be able to piece it all there. And then the evidence, which in a lot of those discussions becomes science, is it's what leads to the conclusion.
Yeah, and so there's just presenting the like we should be able to present the gospel to people, but the thing about it is if you're just parroting the words, then when they present a logical fallacy, then you can't address it because you don't have the logical understanding behind it, and that's really where what I would call apologetics is presenting the logical continuity of the Bible, because it is continuous. People talk about, how could a loving God do this? Well, here's the logical fallacy. It implies that the only attribute about God is that he's loving. That's simply not the case. The other thing about it is, then you can point to the other logical fallacy. Here it is. Why will we say that we can't speak to this person's life because we don't know their experiences? But we can speak to what a righteous and holy God would do. Because you've experienced righteousness and holiness?
There's no possible way we could.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things, but that's where apologetics comes in. So to those who have deep dived in it like I have, one of the things that is a weak spot in the argument is you say, well, if there is no God, there is no standard for moral law. There is no standard for morality. And I think we need to be clear about morality. Morality, I think the best definition I can think to give for it is an absolute law that is given to us as man that does not depend on what our country or what our government says. It is an authority above man, given to us by God, and for those who believe in want to use it, you would say given by the divine. but I'm going to give it its best thing, is a law given by God that supersedes everything else, and that we are to obey it no matter what everything around us says. Doesn't matter what everything around us says is acceptable. It doesn't matter what everything around us. This is where you get the idea of doing the right thing because it's the right thing. Because what's the right thing? If everything's an accident, what's the right thing? Well, according to what supposedly governed me getting to this spot, it would be whatever helps me survive. So if someone over there has the job that I want, and I don't really see him as that valuable, and just do away with him, then I can take his job. But so the idea is that, well, we don't need morality because we as humans are capable of making our own law. There you have morality or law. And that's what we're talking about is, we got into teaching evolution because the heart of man is evil, and we've been looking for ways to reject God. I mean, that's just our base nature. We look for ways to reject God any way we can.
We do, and we not only look for them, but we actively fight for them. I think that's I'm assuming now, just from how you've started, that's the purpose of this is really it's to drive home. We're talking about with someone I think on Saturday the idea that we've got. What was that we were talking about Saturday? But you get to the point where, okay, you can have something legislated, but all that means is that if you're out of the public eye, that law, that command no longer applies. Whereas morals, we're talking that morality, you're talking more something where cameras are off, no one else is in the room, you're still adhering, and how we need that as a society. Otherwise we're just looking for loopholes.
Yep. You're spot on with it. That's exactly where this is going. And the funny thing is, like, if anyone who disagrees with us that thinks that people aren't just running to reject God, understand this. Like, evolution. There's no reason for evolution to be as big as it is, to be talked about or even preached as hard as it is. Because here's the funny thing: it has no bearing on physics. Evolution isn't why we believe that things fall or accelerate at 9.8 meters per second. It has no bearing on that. It has no bearing on electron tunneling, which is what determines how big we can make our processors. Because if you get the silicon layers too close, you have electron tunneling, and the whole thing goes to crap. It can't turn off and on and have signals controlled. It just starts flowing freely, and it's a short circuit. It doesn't have any bearing on any aspect. It doesn't have any bearing on cholesterol, on heart disease, on our understanding of any of these things. Evolution has no bearing on any of that, so really it's just a fun idea, if you want to call it that, for people to believe in. But it shouldn't be anything that's even contested or argued about, because it has no bearing on current scientific knowledge or understanding. And yet it's treated as if it's the basis of science. Like, if you don't accept this, you can't make... Bill Nye made the claim, if you don't believe in evolution, you can't be a good scientist. I'm pretty sure I can still believe that an object falls at 9.8, or it accelerates at 9.8 meters per second, and not believe in evolution. I still believe in electron tunneling. I believe in electromagnetic physics. I believe in quantum physics. I understand all that because we have proven that it behaves by an equation. And we've written out the equation here on Earth on how it behaves. I don't need to believe in evolution for any of that. And yet, it's treated as if it's this thing that cannot be questioned in all that.
Which, that's the thing that drives me bonkers. Because it's a stance that I don't think is ever healthy to take, that if you can't accept one premise, then you're now ruled out entirely. The whole study of science as a whole is everybody's coming together with ideas. Trying to figure out how to explain things that we can't explain. And then you finally find something that might work. You might disprove it in 1 year. You might never disprove it. And then 100 years later, someone says you're wrong.
And there's the funny thing. There's the funny thing about that. The most logical answer for us as humans, if we had no disposition towards God, the most logical answer we can, because there is valid, we went through it, dogma or data, there are valid things that, you expect me to believe that life came from nothing, which we've never observed. You expect me to believe that objects with mass travel faster than the speed of light, which is a physical impossibility. it's okay to say we don't have an answer for this. We don't know how the universe started. This is a guess, but it can be wrong. In fact, there's evidence showing that it's wrong. They're coming up with other things, but when you build it off of, well, it was wrong, so I'm going to throw in a little factor over here to make it go back to being right, it's not really good science. We can't definitively prove God, so realistically, we don't know. There's a bunch of explanations, but we don't really know, and we're just going to leave it at that. We don't know. We don't know is an acceptable answer. On top of that, an intellectually honest person will recognize if you're going to say evolution versus intelligent design, there are four minimum possibilities. One, there is an intelligent creator, and evolution is false. Two, evolution is correct, and there is no creator. Three, there is no intelligent creator, and evolution is wrong. Or four, evolution is the mechanism by which an intelligent creator brought about life. Those are the four logical possibilities that are out there. Now, we here at Misfit Militia hold to there's one answer. There's a creator. He has given us his word, the Bible, and it tells us that he created it in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested. You don't want to believe it, that's fine, but here's the thing about it, and people ask for proof. Look at what the Bible says about man, and look at how man acts. It says man is evil, and we're gonna dive into that here now. So we start America, born on the idea that you give people freedom and you let them govern themselves, right? So obviously, when America first founded, we probably had the least amount of laws that America's ever had.
And that's why we had to write them all into pretty packed documents with as general verbiage as we could, just to try and encompass everything that we're trying to set up for the people.
Well, not only that, we then made a document trying to limit how many laws the government could make, because we wanted to have people without laws, because the idea is that immoral people will govern themselves. And I think that's the thing that I was getting back to is evolutionists will say, well, we can make our own laws. In fact, we did it out of a need to survive, to figure out how to survive together. And that's where morality comes from, is a need to want to survive together. And so obviously, if we're constantly evolving and getting better, then our laws should be getting better, and we should be needing less and less laws because we're just becoming better and better and better as a society. We started out as free as we can be. And this is actually the fun one to me. Now, this is different than what I've said in the past, but I found different data, but it still shows the same trend. So let's look at the most contested one, which is funny. When I looked up laws in America, the weird thing that Google kept showing me is gun laws, gun laws, gun laws, gun laws. So we're going to talk about gun laws. Obviously, when this country was founded, you had the least amount of gun laws. And so I have data going back to 1970, and the thing about this is this just includes everything. Like I saw in there is something about at a school shooting or a school football, I think a football game, stray bullet. So this is just raw data, but still gets my point across. So there was in 1970 there was 166 recorded incidents of a shooting happening at a school site. 166 in total for the decade of 1970. 1980, 223. So 57 increase in the count. Now, in 1990, at the turn, like at the end of 1980s, and right at the turn at 1990, Joe Biden, man who brown marks himself, introduced legislation to make schools gun-free zones because that was going to stop the gun violence. It was going to stop the gun violence. We have laws in place now, and it's going to stop the evil of gun violence. It rose another 60. In fact, it went from 57. It rose 65. And then after that, for the decade of 2000, it went up 70 or 68. And then 2010, in the decade of 2010, it went from 356 to 516.
Now these are cases of what again?
Anytime a firearm or a bullet, any kind of active shooting or a firearm was discharged near a school.
Okay, just near a school in general.
Yeah, which is a gun-free zone. So I figured, okay, we'll count it. We'll count it because it's a gun-free zone. You're not supposed to have guns near there.
Sure.
And it's going to stop people from having guns.
Going to the morality versus law. If it's law, then you'd be following it regardless. And okay.
And so we put in law 356 to 116. That is 160 increase between 2000 and 2010. And then it's this is the best part. We're not even halfway through 2020. We're at 520. So we've passed the previous decade, and we're now starting our 4th year of there. But hey, laws, right? And that's the thing. You look at Enron. We're having stricter laws there. We've deviated from the Bible. We've taken the Bible out, and people think, oh, well, it was recently. No, they started teaching. I looked it up one time. They started teaching evolution in schools about at the turn of the century, the 19th, or I guess the 20th century. Yeah, 20th century. Is early. I think it's recorded as early as like 1890 or something like that. They started teaching evolution in schools.
Well, and see the crazy thing, we stand behind biblical principle, but those principles in and of themselves have objective value in the lens of morality. It's not you don't we derive it from. Oh, Princess Magpul says yes 1890 was the date you were looking for.
Thank you, Princess.
That's something that we understand inherently, which is not by mistake. That's by God's design. But if you're not even going to acknowledge that, you'd be completely disingenuous to not acknowledge that those certain bases of morality about not killing, not stealing, those are things are wrong. Even if you're doing them, they're wrong.
I'm gonna make this, and I'm gonna serve up a softball, because this is the one that I think a lot of Christians like to run from, or they'll find an excuse for why they don't. Deuteronomy 22, 20 and verses 20 and 22. It says this: "But if this thing be true," and what it's talking about here is there's an accusation against a man's daughter that she's found to not be a virgin. It says, "If these and the tokens of virginity be not found for the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that she die, because she hath wrought folly in Israel to play in her father's house. So shalt you put evil away from among you, if a man be found lying." And so it's talking about basically premarital sex. And a lot of Christians like to run, oh, that's the God of the Old Testament. And we say, oh, this is this horrible, wretched thing. And I'll say, even humanistically in me, it seems like overkill. But now let's look at what the statistics have shown with single motherhood. One of the things with single motherhood, many school shooters are the product of broken homes. 1960s was the free love movement, and we just looked at the gun stats, and it's constantly been on the increase. From 1970s and up, it's been on the increase, and fatherless homes were becoming more and more prevalent in that time. So the data supports it. I know the last I saw that it was at least over 80% of recent mass shooters all came from broken homes. And then you think that's okay. That's okay. There's stats here. All right. 63% of youth suicides. 63% from fatherless homes. Over half. We can cut out over half of the youth suicides if we promote and foster this idea that women should look for one man and stay with that one man. Look for a quality guy who is going to love and care for her, almost like what the Bible says that you should do. And we could decrease 63% of youth suicides.
Well, why is that? What is it? And we know from the Christian lens we understand the answer, but why is it that something like single motherhood becomes such a problem? Is because if you look at it from the lens of morality, we understand that some of it is bred into us. A lot of it is inherent to us. But as children, we need it taught. We need it reinforced. We know that stealing's wrong, but when we're a kid and little Johnny over there has got a toy that I want, the immediate inclination is I want it. I'm going to grab it. He's got his back turned. I'm going to go grab it. It's the father. It's the fear of the parents coming down with a belt that stopped us all as kids from saying, I'm absolutely taking that.
Well, and that's the thing. We talked about it earlier. You know, God has made men and women different. Women tend to, as a general thing, tend to fall more on that grace and mercy side of it, which isn't a bad thing because those are attributes of God. You have that propensity because God has made you with the ability to show grace and mercy. But the other side of it is God is still just with us. The Bible says, do not, my child, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, for the Lord chastens those whom he loves. Chastening is correction, discipline. God disciplines us because he loves us. And that's the side that we as men tend to see better. We understand that I'm not doing this because I want to just take out anger and aggression on you and I want to hit you. I'm doing this so that the pain reminds you that this is not a good thing and it comes with consequence.
No.
Either you're going to suffer consequence or someone else is going to suffer consequence. And it doesn't matter if the consequence is on you or me. If it's a bad consequence, if it's a negative consequence, it's bad. Sin, that's the thing about it. Sin is the only thing that has negative consequence. Doing good does not have negative consequence.
That's why the fruits of the Spirit, when they're listed out in the Bible, the words following immediately after all 9 of them are listed says, what is it? Against these things there is no such law. If you are loving to people, I'm not talking loving as in sex, because that's not the love in the context here. That's an act. True forms of love, there's no law against it. Truly being self-controlled, you're more likely to miss something maybe if you're overly controlling of yourself, but you're not going to sin. You might miss an opportunity to go do something. I don't know, but you're not going to sin in the law of being self-controlled.
Nope. Well, that's the thing. Most things are because most fights are over because they didn't do what I wanted, or they didn't do what. If you're self-controlled, or if you're like you said, loving them, caring more about them, it's not going to cause as much fights. If you're self-controlled in what you say, you're only going to state the facts. You're not going to throw out insults. You're not going to throw attacks. You're just going to state the facts. Look, I asked you to do this, and you did not do it. Or a thing of, hey, is it okay if you do this way next time because I asked you to do it. I appreciate that you did it, but the way you did it, I don't think is good. I think there's a better way to do it, and I would appreciate it if you did it this way next time. It's objective statements. I think this accomplishes this, which was not accomplished with how you did it.
Well, with the whole talk of something being morality versus law, I think that's why it's important, especially for children, and even us with respect to God and the way God lays it out for us, that we have reasonings for why. Like, God doesn't owe us an answer. We always say that a parent doesn't owe a child an answer, but in my opinion, you look at the proper and the wise parents, and yes, this is my opinion, they do explain things to their kids, not because it's owed to them, but because I feel like if you really think about it, law is the infant stage of morality. Because when you're young and can't understand, you're told because I said so. When you're older, you're told you don't put your hand on the stove because it's going to burn. You don't hit that kid because he's 1 foot taller than you and he's going to lay you out on the ground. Like there's things that you learn as you go, but at first, it's law. Then it becomes your understanding of morality when you can finally comprehend, okay, this is proper design here. This is how we should be acting.
And I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this right now. So anyone who wants to check where I got this from, I'm gonna post the comments I'm gonna post the links in the comments. So anyone can go take a look at any of those if they want. But we're gonna. So you say, okay, well, that's one thing. Suicide is 63%. 90% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. So almost all of them, the runaways, from fatherless homes. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. This is the one that hit me, because it's like, if anything shows you that this embracement of single motherhood is a part of our sin nature, it's this right here. Especially in conjunction, we talk about empowering women, empowering women, empowering women. right? You get inundated with that day in and day out. We need to empower women. We need to empower women to have equity with men, to be equal with men. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. 80%. 4 out of every 5. A 1,000 rapists. If we took single parenthood seriously, and if we followed God's prescription, that means for every 100 rapists for every 100 rapists you have, you'd only have 20. You'd get rid of 80 women who are victims.
Well, and we understand the role that the man is supposed to play in teaching things, even down to anger control. And as our good friend Linda just put up in Linda Peckinpah put up in the chat, it's Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child on the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it.
We appreciate that, Linda.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it. I know that the thing I always see, because I get a lot of stuff on my social media about men and women, and just the difference between men and women. And men need to be more outspoken about their emotions. No, we teach control of emotions, because this is what happens when a man is not in control of his emotions. Women, you experience all kinds of emotions. Like, you do. It's fantastic. You know, Jonathan and I always say, when telling stories, like, all of the emotions come into the story. And so now you have 13 right turns, 22 left turns, a couple of U-turns, and all this just to find out how we're having chicken for dinner. And there's a time and place for it. But we as men, because of testosterone, it tends to be more towards anger and aggression. We get frustrated with things very quickly.
I was gonna say it's more likely if a guy's recounting their day, you'll probably hear the most time spent either on something funny or an actual problem. Whereas if you're asking a woman in a wonderful way, you're actually gonna get the full in and out details of every. If it was great, here's what happened. If it was bad, here's what happened. And you'll get the full detail. And that's not because men are deficient. You know, there is truth to the statement that men can explain their emotions more, but I don't know that it's in the way that people think. Because as you said, there is a time and a place that you do have to be able to rein that in and know when to show. I've had to check myself a lot with my daughter in the times that I can show her the sadness I feel in her not being here versus the times where I have to choke it back and give her the rock that she's looking for.
Well, then that's the thing about it. Emotions. Emotions are for relationships. That's how we connect with one another relationally. It's something that binds us. You know, we take joy in this. We have this. We both enjoy the same thing. We both get. It makes us happy. Or we're like, oh, sad movies. We like watching sad movies. We like watching thrillers because the scare and all that. It's great for relationships. But in terms of decision making, you need sound judgment. You need, when you split-second decisions, when there's a problem and you need a quick reaction, you need to, it's logic. If I do this, this is the outcome. If I do this, this is the potential outcome. If I do this, this is the potential outcome. If I do this, this is the potential outcome. And you have to be able to be logical. And so we as men naturally, especially as God has created us to be the leaders, we have to be in control ourselves to do that. And this 80%, not just rapists with anger problems. It's what happens when a man cannot control himself. He wants to do something, and he does it because he will not control himself. And I tell you what, you teach a man to control himself in that area, and you will have a man who will control himself in a great many other areas. He will be very firm in self-control.
And the thing, real quick, just to jump in, the thing, you know, if you don't have that male figure to show you that control, it's so easy to say, well, yeah, it's just common sense, don't do this. You're right, it is, but we're sinful. And even when we know, and we've all proven it to ourselves time and time again, I don't care who you say you worship, you cannot deny the fact that you know something's wrong and you do it anyway. There are some points it happens, whether it's something like stealing from a grocery store or something as simple as being in an argument, and you tell yourself, I can't say that because it's going to spin that person up. What do? You say it and you spin them up. You're in a relationship. I can't be doing this. I'm already taken. What do? You're waking up the next morning trying to plead with whatever you're worshiping why did I do this?
Mm-hmm.
At least, and this is the thing that we cling to as Christians, is that there is no guesswork. It's not just law; it is morality.
And that's the funny thing. You can't even claim, well, just don't do it. Well, we know it's wrong. Well, we know it's wrong. Do we?
Clearly
Do
not.
we? If we just knew these things, these stats wouldn't exist. We have to be taught to obey. That's pure and simple. We, as humans, have to be taught to obey because we will not. Anyone who doesn't believe me, you go babysit. Babysit. Go spend some time with a viper in a diaper. You will find out very quickly they have to be taught to obey because they're not going to just blanket listen to you. Especially if you show them that they can get away with it.
And then even when you get to adults, it was the on the gun control discussion. It was my favorite coming out of New Mexico. What was it, 6-8 months ago? You had that deputy where he stood up on TV to the news and said, "I am not going to have my officers disarm." Why? Because he said, it was his words. Last time he said, what did he say? He was like, "I'm going to let y'all in on a secret. Criminals don't follow the law." And which seemed so profound for some reason, coming from a deputy, even though this is something we understand. Morality goes a lot deeper than law, because law stops when the eyes close.
Yeah.
Morality does not.
Yep. If you think we're wrong, you can ask. Go ask people. Just pose it to them. Pose them this scenario. You know, there's a bank, no security cameras. It's insured, so whatever gets stolen is going to be fully replaced. And you know you could walk in there. There's sloppy. You could walk in there and walk out with $20,000. It will get replaced. There will be no. It's still against the law to steal because it's not yours. But for all you know, there's going to be no negative consequence. Would you take the money? There's a lot of people who would. You want to know how I know? Because I was in a baseball camp. A baseball camp. Nothing to do with morality. The one thing I'll give this coach credit for, he professed to be a Christian, so he tried to push that with them. There was other things with him that didn't really show those fruits, but he pushed that with them because there was a lot of kids that said they would take it. And he said, "Shame on you," because the person who insures that now has to shell out the money. You know, and people who, you know, that's other people's money that they can't have. You just went and took it because you wanted it. But I'm willing to bet that if someone found out there was going to be no negative consequences to them violating a law, they'd just do it. And if you don't, if you think that we need proof of that, look at California. There's no consequences if you steal under $900 worth of stuff. And what's going on in California right now?
The only reason it's stopping is because citizens are saying they've had enough and standing up, and while the store owners are getting robbed, the citizen comes in and starts beating the guy for stealing something.
Yep. Well,
And there was the one video where the guy's telling him, "No, don't worry, just claim it on your insurance. It'll be covered. It's under not," as he's walking out the door with their stuff.
CNN went to go see if this was really that big of an issue, and they saw 3 people shoplift while they were there. They saw them because it's not even hidden because there is no consequence.
Well, let's look at the other side too.
Well, before we get to that point, there was a video out of a store owner who jacked up all the prices of everything in the store to $901, and then if you came and got something at the register, he would give you a discount, putting it back at the original price.
Yep.
So that he could call the cops if anyone shoplifted. And then people were berating him for doing it.
But you know what? He didn't have stuff stolen, did he?
Nope.
It's crazy to me because that works, you know. And if there's still not enough evidence there, let's look at what happens every October, November, every December 1st. We'll tie this back to an old discussion. The discussion of Santa Claus comes out, and what happens? Kids turn like that into angels. Kids that would never listen, all of a sudden, why? Because they know there's consequence on the line. They know that there's something to lose. I'm gonna get black rocks for Christmas.
Well, they're told there's something to lose.
Yeah.
They think that there's something to
I
lose.
guess I should say no in the child sense,
Yep.
in your lack of knowing. Yeah, they're told, and so all of a sudden they straighten up. And then December 26th, maybe 27th, we'll give them benefit of the doubt. goes back to the way it was. Why? Because they made it through another week, another year.
But that's the thing. It's been long standing because the Ten Commandments were heavily brought into, which this is the funny thing from side note, this is the funny thing for me with apologetics. It's funny how these people that say that we as Christian or we as people just naturally come up with these, they always point to the societies that have heavily Judeo-Christian influence of, see, we just know these things are wrong. Why don't we go to the tribes in India, like the one tribe that has never made contact with anyone because they kill anyone who tries to come in and make contact with them? Why don't we talk about the Native Americans and how they were just killing each other over sacred land? Let's talk about the tribes in Africa, which once they conquered a tribe, they sold off the men as slaves, which is why we had slaves in America. But no, we're going to point to see, within these Judeo-Christian things, we already know that murder and rape and stealing is wrong and all this stuff. You mean the society that accepts that the Bible has told us that these things are wrong, therefore it's wrong, we just naturally know that... Anyways. You sit there and say, well, clearly, 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. So now we're talking about over half of them are going to be not properly educated, which who knows if that's a good or bad thing. 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. 3/4 of every child that's on drugs, fatherless homes. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions come from fatherless homes. That's penitentiary. 85% of all youths sitting in prisons. So it's even more than that. 85% of all youth sitting in prisons grew up in fatherless homes.
It's funny because you look at the fatherless homes, and it's like there's a running theme among three things that children lose every single time. They lose respect, they lose responsibility, and they lose any kind of emotional stability. And those all three are things specifically handled by the mother or the father that once you break apart that home, whichever parent is left, husband or wife, mother or father, you're not able to exercise the way you're supposed to.
Well, and here's the funny thing. This isn't the statistics for single parent. This is the statistics for single mothers. It's not like the prison one. No, I believe it's here. Hold on. For example, studies found that children from single mother households are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than children from both unbroken households and single father households.
Oh.
9 times more likely to drop out of high school. 10 times more likely to abuse chemical substance. 14 times more likely to commit rape if you're with your mother rather than your father. 20 times more likely to end up in prison, and 32 times more likely to run away from home.
That hurts. And this is why we have such a passion for the outlined responsibilities for mothers and fathers in the home, not separately, but as a joint unit, because it's you get all the stories about the mom and the dad bickering and fighting and who's got to pay what and who's upset, but who's the ones that who are really hurt by it? It's the children, which then translates to the society, which then just snowballs.
The funny thing, like, all I have to say is, does it really sound like I need to defend God on why he said the women should be stoned if they're found not to be virgins? At this point, if that's not a defense to you, you and I can't agree on what's good for society. Which means the evolutionary premise is even wrong, because to me this is pretty clear cut. And am I saying that we should stone women now for not being virgins?
Absolutely not.
No. But that's the kind of care and seriousness we should take the issue with. 14 times more make that make sense. Because the moms are the ones, like, the whole reason, my whole thing on how I treat women pours forth from the relationship I had with my mom. Imagining having to if guys or having someone treat my mom like that. How I treat my mom is realistically how I seek to treat other women with respect and care and stuff like that. But it's being raised by a mom and they're treating women like this. 14 times more likely to commit rape. Let me...
Well, I want to jump in real quick. So Linda put in the comments that we're born sinful and have to be taught the right way to live, which spot on. And then Princess Magpul had echoed the statement of, against such things there is no law when we start talking about the fruits of the Spirit. It's just interesting to me thinking about it now, because you look at those fruits of the Spirit now, understanding this is the evidence that we see in someone that they're a Christian. And when we look at that side by side with the idea of morality, God had it laid in before any of this that it was a lot more than a law. How do we know that? Because he says, against things there is no such law. So clearly setting laws was never meant to be enough. It's a nice guidepost, but it doesn't teach you how to live. It doesn't help you structure your life just to have a law. There has to be a deeper rooted morality that's going to teach that kid not to rape. Not just, oh, well, I can't do that because I may want, but something further. Getting to the thing of, I can't, we don't do that to people because it's just wrong. You shouldn't have to fight to explain why it's wrong.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? If you look at the 10 Commandments, and let's say you don't want to take the first and greatest commandment seriously, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. What did you say the second greatest commandment is? To love your neighbor as yourself.
Yep.
If we instilled that, the wisdom in that statement, to love your neighbor as yourself, the wisdom in that statement, because it forces even the selfish person to treat others well, because most people don't want to be treated like crap. Most people don't want to be treated most people want to be treated great, even if they treat others like crap. But if that was instilled in every child's heart, treat others the way you would like them to treat, not treat others the way that you were treated. Do unto others as is done unto you. No, do unto others as you would like to have done unto you. The wisdom and profoundness in that, because all the great minds of today ain't teaching that.
No.
So you're going to tell me we're the most educated we've ever been and the most philosophized that we've ever been, and we can't even come to this truth. Yet in the Bible it says, do unto others as you would have done unto you. It for one thing, for people who love people, that's going to be not a problem. For which the only reason we're able to love is because God first loved us. But but even to the selfish person, if you want to be treated with respect, it then tells you to treat others with respect. If you want to be cared for and taken care of, then you have to care for and take care of others. This isn't a law that man is coming up with. We're proving that. You are seeing in America right now what man is capable of with morality, with coming up with their own laws, and how well it actually restrains them. Not very.
And that's the thing. It doesn't actually treating others the way that you want to be treated doesn't even fit a law. It actually prevents you from ever even having to look at a law if you follow that. If you truly treat people the way you want to be treated, there's never going to be an issue about stealing something from someone because you want to lose it yourself. There's never going to be an issue of attacking someone or breaking and entering. There's never going to be there's no problems there. You're free to act as long as you act on that premise, because you're not there's no law you're going to break.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We've already hit on all these. Let's keep going. How sad is that? There's still more to get to. We've only gotten to this part. There's other stuff I wanted to mention, but I think this is the most notable one, because we've rejected it. We've rejected God's word as a society. We have said as long as it's not hurting others, it's okay. We've come up with our own things of what is acceptable and what isn't. The list does not stop there. Single mother households also account for 70% of all teen pregnancies, 70% of child murders, and they account for the majority of filicide cases, which means, yes, a child living in a single mother household is the most likely to be murdered by their parent. For me, it makes total and complete sense why God has made the laws for Israel the way he did. You want to keep a nation pure, you keep your daughters pure. This is the funny thing. You want to control a nation? Women. Force men to be upstanding men. Men want that one thing. Make him be a quality guy that deserves it.
Yep.
Not someone who gets it because he's got a six-pack. Or someone who gets it because he's making six figures. Or because he's 6'1". Forget those sixes. In fact, that's actually kind of the funny thing. You think about that. The standard that men have for women, 6'6". I'm not one of those that, 6'6" automatically promotes it. But it's kind of funny.
It is interesting.
They're looking for the 3 6s. 6 foot, 6 figure, 6-pack. And what does it all lead to? Everything we're seeing here. No, find a man who loves God. Find a man who loves God because he will love you as the Bible commands, as Christ loves the church. But understand, the church submits to Christ. What does the church get to ask? Or what does the church get to demand of God? What does it get to demand of Christ? What does it get to require of him? I mean, he loved it that he purified it by offering up his own life. And even now takes care of it. But I want y'all to understand, like, reading those stats is so hard for me. That's why it seems like I'm angry. It's just passionate. Just reading those. Because the idea of women being raped and murdered or being attacked, it's not one that I like. Yes, I want men to act better. You shouldn't be doing that stuff. Single motherhood doesn't necessarily... It doesn't excuse it. You're not absolved of your responsibility for committing these horrendous acts because of what you were raised with. Because the fact of the matter is we do have a guidebook. But that's the thing about it, is that's why we at Misfit Militia Coffee, we don't just preach the Constitution, because the Constitution is not enough. Getting back to constitutionalism is not going to fix our society.
Well, we wouldn't stand on the Constitution if it didn't stand on God's in the realm of God's word, I will say.
That is the underlying thing that most constitutionalists miss. Is the only thing that makes the Constitution work is a moral people. We have to be grounded in morality, otherwise the Constitution is just as doomed as everything else. In fact, that's what we're seeing. Why do you think laws keep coming? And that's really what I kind of wanted to point out. And it's easiest to see with gun laws. We have over 10,000 gun laws in a country that says shall not be infringed. We founded this country on the idea that there should be no gun laws, and we have over 10,000. And man is just going to know what's right on his own? No. No. You cannot have a country that's founded on the idea that you do not need gun laws because men with firearms are going to protect against evil, and now you have over 10,000 gun laws and you still can't stop it, and you keep talking about how it's an epidemic and crisis and all that stuff.
Therein lies the problem that we've seen with a lot with most of society nowadays, the way that and I say that as a whole, the way we operate as a whole, unless we actually strive to operate differently, is you turn over the teaching of those things to someone else. So the parents turn it over to the schools, and the schools turn it over to the states, and the states turns it over to the government, and the government says one thing. And then it trickles back down, and then people decide that they've got a problem with it. Mm-hmm. Whereas from the start, the point of it was supposed to be that we can, as you said, we can live that way as long as we live with that morality. And that we're not going to have, frankly, stupid, silly debates about, is it really wrong to kill? Yes, it's wrong to kill someone. Like, let's stop with the dumb debates and just be sincere for once, and just be honest about what we understand is right and wrong, and then teach our kids that, and stop penalizing people who do.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about it is it's not like it's not like all those are just, well, these are just negative, thing, murder, crime, like ending up in prison, so that they become lawbreakers. So no matter that's the thing about it. If you're a lawbreaker, what law do you bring to stop a lawbreaker from breaking the law?
They've already proven that the law doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, they've already proven they're going to break the law. So what law do you bring to stop a lawbreaker? At that point, the only thing you can do, like, it's another one that appears. Hold on. I'm gonna look this up because...
Make sure your wording is proper.
Yeah.
Because it has to be.
Well, it's been worded properly for us.
There you go.
Deuteronomy 21:18-21. If any man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey his father or his mother, and when they chastise him, he will not even listen to them, then his father and mother shall seize him and bring him out of the elders of the city at the gateway of his hometown, and they shall say to the elders of his city, the son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of the city shall stone him to death. So you shall remove the evil from your midst, and all Israel shall hear of it in fear. And you need to understand something about this. This isn't just saying, if your son disobeys, have him stoned. It's very clear.
He's a glutton and a drunkard, and will not listen to anything.
And when they chastise him, we talked about that. The Lord chastens those whom he loves. When you correct him, when you stop him, because think about it, if he won't even listen to you who are providing his needs, why is he going to listen to a government that's not? Especially because what's the biggest excuse that they have in California for why they steal? Because everything's so expensive. I can't afford to live, man. This is how I afford to live. This is how I afford to live. That's not why you do it. You do it because you want to. Because it's easy. And if he will not obey his father or his mother, when they chastise him, he will not even listen to them. Then his father, and it's saying basically someone who has proven irrefutably that they are going to be a lawbreaker.
And again, for the disclaimers, no, we're not talking about actually stoning your children. But it is the understanding that God had that in place for a reason. We understood way before, for everyone who says we're so much smarter now, way back when, it was laid down in stone.
And we understood it as a society. That's what the death penalty was. It was for someone. It was specifically, I think, you cannot be, or the way you avoid the death penalty is you plead guilty. If there's acknowledgement of sin, if there's acknowledgement that you have committed murder, then that basically stops you from being capable of receiving the death penalty. Now, it could be one of those things where if you killed enough people, I'd have to look into this further. So, something I don't know. But I think if you killed enough people and they proved it beyond a reasonable doubt, they would still give you the death penalty, because how can you kill that many people and not care?
Right.
But there's the understanding of that. If you are unwilling to acknowledge, and we're talking forensic evidence, they found your DNA, they found sweat, and they found DNA on the gun that was tied to the bullet that was in the head of the victim. The gun was registered in your name. It had the victim's blood on it. It had your DNA on it, no one else's. They found your shirt that you were wearing that day. It had the victim's blood on it. We're talking about irrefutable proof that you're guilty and you still sit there and say, no, I'm innocent, I didn't do this, no, they didn't want me, man, and it was gruesome enough, they would give you the death penalty because you're clearly not going to admit your wrongdoing, and you'll clearly do it again. Logically. Goes back to what we said. Logic is how we determine truth. That is the logical ramifications of what's going on here with this law that God gave. And just like with the ones with the women being virgins, now we can deduce logically this is the consequence of if we do not take purity seriously, especially for the young ladies. And guys, you should take their purity seriously.
You should be spearheading the charge.
Yes, because girl can only be of the streets if you let her be. And you are the leader. You are the one that God expects to do right. You are the one who's expected to wash your impurity. So start before you're even married.
Because just in case men think they're off the hook with it, biblically speaking, just as much as a woman should never be putting herself in that place, a man should be able, not that we can, but a true biblical man should be able to have women acting that way. And they all in unison say, no, I respect you as God's child too much to allow for any of that to happen. You need to go somewhere else. And then at the very least, you could say that the hint would be gotten that, oh, well, guess they're not into that. I guess I need to be the same way that we're saying drive the man to be worthy of what you are. It would drive the exact same thing in the opposite direction.
No, and I'm fully going to admit, I'm not saying this as someone who's perfect in this area. I'm not saying this as someone who has excelled in this area. I failed in this area.
We'd all be liars if we said we were. If we particularly excelled, especially being understanding how severely God talks about sexual sin specifically, how big of a problem that it is for all of humanity.
Yeah, I failed in this area horribly, and it weighs like that's why I'm saying about this is because knowing that I was spared from the consequences of my own sin that I should be facing. And now that being said, like it's one of those things I would be fighting to, but that's even for the fathers who fight to be fathers. It's so hard for them to win and be fathers. And so it's because sin has horrible consequence. And like that's why even reading this it hits for me as hard as it is, knowing that I was contributing to that at one point. I'm not happy about it. You know, praise the Lord, He saves us from our sins, past, present, and future, and that salvation is an act of grace alone. But it's just if we want society to improve, we have to start by making sure the family's kept intact. Because you need the parents, both parents, a father and a mother. I think that's the thing that this disproves, I think very clearly, is that it doesn't matter just as long as they have two parents. Some people will try and argue that, secular people, I'm sure. You know what? I'm still going to disagree. You're allowed to disagree with me. I don't care. God has made man and woman. Children need a mother and a father. God did not create anything without purpose, without reason. We're going to say men and women are different, which now we're not because God gave them over to a debased mind, but that's another topic for another day. Children need a father and a mother. And we need to really start getting back. And this is where it comes back to morality or law. You need to get back to not just a thing of, well, just don't do it because it's illegal. Well, don't just do it because it's illegal. The fact of the matter is we have to understand that we have to be in the mindset of taking care of one another, and that only comes from the Bible. We as humans just don't naturally seek to take care of one another. You sit there and say, well, my kid gave this other kid a toy, and she didn't learn that from everyone. Really? You've never given your kid anything? You've never handed them, here you go. You've never shown your child kindness? They've never observed you being kind to them, and so they go and turn and do it to someone else? So So when they go and take things from someone else or hit someone, then they see you. That's the only thing they see you doing that. They don't see you being kind to anyone. I'm sorry. I kind of find that hard to believe.
Children are sponges. We know this.
This is the funny thing. I was listening to Paul Washer while I was working Saturday, and one of the things he talked about is, if you get kids something, you get them a toy, and they just don't want to play with it, the surefire number one way to get a child interested in playing with that toy is then just give it to another kid. And all of a sudden, that's mine. I want it.
Best toy in the world.
Mm-hmm. They didn't want it 5 minutes ago, but now nothing can pry it out of their hands. But I think that's the thing is laws aren't going to do anything. Laws aren't going to fix anything. Even within the house, it's not about making laws. It's about teaching them to love others and care more about others other than themselves, which, as you pointed out, is a great point. When you love as the Bible commands, when you teach them to be, if you teach them the fruits of the Spirit, if you obey those things, there's no need for a law. That's really the ideology behind the Constitution. That's what the premise was of the Constitution. If you teach people the Word of God, if you teach them what is morally right, if you teach them to obey God's law, you don't need government law. The law is for the lawless and disobedient. It's to say we're making it so it is just for us to react to these actions. Because we're saying that these actions, we agree as a society, these actions are wrong, and this gives us a means to bring about justice, because that's another thing that we have, because God has put it within us, is a sense of justice. If anyone who thinks I'm wrong, just look at the most common and laziest argument against God. Well, if God's so just, why would He let good things happen or bad things? See, I can't even get it right because it's so silly. Why would He let bad things happen to good people? Well, let's define good people, because by God's definition, there is none righteous, no, not one.
It's crazy. We'll go consult leaders in industries on anything. We'll go sit in seminars to talk about business and talk about parenting and talk about manufacturing and talk about all these things. And why do we trust them as leaders? Because they have a proven track record. People won't even take a look at the Bible. But to that, I would just ask people to just take a look, just from the stats that we've gone over today. Just take a look at what God not just suggests, but what God mandates for His children, and then look at the stats and look at how those stats just because I think we can all be fair enough to say that you can make some speculation as to what direction the stats would go if certain things shifted. And so put the father back in those households, and put the teachings of the Bible back in those households, coming out of the mothers and the fathers' mouths. And if you need some proof just to even start trying to take the Bible on the authority that truly is due to God, because that's it's a thing here that it is due to God. Just look at how those numbers would shift, and then tell me that that it's a ridiculous thing to put base in, and I'll call you out for lying.
Well, and this is the funny thing, because we wanted to get to more, or like this wasn't supposed to be just about single parenthood. That wasn't the sole focus of this, because now we look at who's most likely to be on antidepressants, and this is from the CDC. So from the government's mouth itself, the people who are most likely to be on antidepressants are women. And you say, well, that's because there's so much depression. Well, let's see. That changes if you're basically if you're non-white. In fact, actually, whites are the most likely to be on, and the other ones are far less likely to be on antidepressants. It's mostly white women, and you see that it's usually the college-educated are the more of the likely to be on there. And granted, the college, I've never liked those ones where, oh, it's more. Well, yeah, it's 16.7 versus 18.3, so not a huge difference.
So it's not drastic.
But between the one non-Hispanic whites, 10.5, and let me see, what is that? I think 10.5%. 10.5% of men versus 22.3%. So that's a drastic difference. And between white women and we'll say with blacks, it's 22% to 10%. Between white women and Asian women, it's 22 to 3.4%, and with white women to Hispanic women, it's 22% to 8.9%. Understanding this whole feminism thing is a more Western ideology. Empowerment of women. Women have. Oh well, they're still making so much sense. No, they're more likely to graduate college. They're, I don't know. I'm starting to get tired from all the thing with it. I'm full of transparency, but I mean, women are more likely to graduate college. They're starting to take up more of the higher paying jobs. Not as much as men. Yeah, that's fine. Appreciate it. You're a kind man. But it's the interesting thing is it's like the 18 to 39-year-olds are the least depressed.
Interesting.
I have a feeling part of that is because no matter which way you're going, you're kind of pursuing what you think you want.
Yeah.
But the thing is, very few of them are pursuing stay-at-homes, and so the 60 and over are the most likely to be on antidepressants. 40 to 59, which is where I think you start to have the cat ladies or the ones who are not happy because their husband isn't doing everything that they wanted, and so now they're starting to get depressed.
On it. So I guess to kind of to button this all up, because even you said like it gets exhausting running through all the list of things here. But whether you're looking at children or you're looking at older couples who are looking for one to do one thing or another, I think the overall answer here of having a true established morality, having a true understanding of, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how experienced you are, doesn't matter how much money you got in your pocket, how in shape you are, if you're focusing on those things that we can say are we understand are inherently right, we just need pushing to actually put into practice. That love, treating your neighbor as you would want to be treated. If we could follow that, why do we need a whole list of 10,000 laws to tell someone not to shoot someone? We don't.
Well, and the funny thing is that the problem is the only way we have a hope of following that is if there's a desire to follow the first and greatest law. You think about it, because if you love the Lord your God with all your heart, then you want to do what is pleasing to the Lord your God, which you love with all your heart, which means you will treat your neighbor as yourself, because that's the second greatest law.
Even in detriment to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that becomes the big thing too, is you understand it to a point that you're putting God before your own life, because you know that He's got your life regardless.
And that's the funny thing. And so I mean, if it's possible, yeah, like if we can get everyone on board with love your neighbor as yourself, but it realistically requires you to want to have a thriving society. It wants you to do what is right just because it's the right thing. And the problem is, how do you convince someone, especially if we hate evil, how you convince it? Well, to those who have embraced the Word of God or say that you're a Christian, that's my thing, is we have to cling to the Word of God, because society is showing what happens when you don't. We have deviated from the Word of God. We teach evolution. Most people don't believe in God, or they believe in a God who realistically serves them. And I mean the stats are here. It's really sad to think about, because we sit here and pride ourselves in being this advanced civilization, or these advanced, evolution. We've grown so smart. We have technological advancements that others don't have. Yet the stats are crystal clear. And what do you have? You have Black Lives Matter calling for the abolition of the nuclear family. You have other organizations calling for the abolition of the nuclear family. And you see that the best chance for a child to succeed, to end up educated, to not be on drug abuse, to not be in prison, to not be a rapist, best chances is if they have a nuclear family, and we're trying to abolish that. Why? I leave it out for you. Someone give me an explanation who doesn't believe in God or thinks that all the Bible's just made up. Why are we trying to abolish something that statistically is proving to be the best outcome for a child?
And then for us as Christians, and talking to all the Christians out there, we have to be 5 steps ahead of this. We can't be. For a true Christian, there should be no need for a law, as we're saying. So we shouldn't be waiting for something to come into law to then check ourselves on these things. It's always going to be understood that rape isn't okay. We shouldn't even be getting close to that discussion as a Christian. And we understand that we fall short and we are going to sin, but we should be policing ourselves daily with these things. We can't be this. We can't be this statistic. We can't be found even close to a realm of somehow being twisted into that statistic. We have to be the light first. We have to stand out apart from everybody else, whether it's in business or in private or whatever. We have to be different.
And that's the thing. If you want to know how you're going to stand out in public, you stand out in private.
Yeah.
If nobody acknowledges what you do, if nobody knows what you're doing and you're still doing it, that's a good thing. That's a beautiful thing.
It's the same thing we say with firearms. You're going to, in a moment of stress, in a moment of being whatever, you're going to go back to your base instinct. Catch someone off guard and see how they respond. You got a good idea of how they respond in private.
That's the funny thing is that's basically what Christ came and said. If you sit here and say, well, I police my actions, I tell you, if you can't even police your thoughts, you are not righteous.
No. Because
out of the thoughts come the actions. The actions are just the manifestation of the thoughts you already have. And so if you're constantly listening to music that makes you thinking about things, if you're constantly listening to or watching TV shows that have bad messages or people are violating God's law, all these things, if you're constantly taking that in and you're constantly watching that, your thoughts are going to be governed towards that, and you're going to, it's only a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so that's the Bible even addresses that. Anything that is good, anything that is pure, anything that is holy, upon such things meditate. And that's the thing. We should be striving to be focused on things that are good. We should surround ourselves, just doom scroll on people doing good, people giving to others, people caring about others, people going out of their way to take care of someone who can't pay them back. We should be focusing on the good things because then it drives us towards that, and we desire to be like what we're taking in. I mean, that's why we take it in. But I guess realistically, that's about
it.
About all I can say. It's one of those things. I want to make sure that, I don't know how to make sure the message is clear. I don't know how to whatever. It's like I want to make sure that everything is stated because it's such an important topic. But then it's like, well, what have we already stated? What haven't we stated? What needs to be restated? I don't know.
I think we've got it. And I would hope, and please let us know, comments, private message or otherwise, if we're not getting the care and the love behind all of this out. I think it's been pretty. I personally think it's been pretty upfront and in faces of the love that's going behind this and the desire and the true point of all of this.
Well, and it's one of those things that I also want to let you all know the comments definitely help.
Yes.
Linda, I know Strategist comments, and Angela even said we need a man who is concerned and wanting to protect our purity in that dating period, which she's absolutely right. If a guy is not concerned about it when you're dating, he's not going to be concerned about it afterwards.
Yep.
And it's the comments, when y'all comment, it really helps. It really does. I may not read them all out. I may not read them at all, but I do go back and look at them afterwards. I go back and just knowing that someone's out there listening, that someone agrees with something I said, and even if we had someone vehemently disagree, and I'm more than welcome to the disagreements. I like reading them because I like to see if there's sound logic there. Because if there is sound logic, I have an obligation to change. Because as I said at the start of this, logic is how we derive truth. And so if you bring me solid logic, and I can't refute it, then the obligation is on me to change my belief so that it's logically correct instead of just that we agree to disagree. So. Well, with that being said, and Flash, you got anything for them, Big Bad Jon?
I think we're pretty much got it all covered.
Do we have anything from our in-live studio audience?
Nope.
All right. Well, on that note, Misfits, stay beautiful, stay safe, stay free, and stay caffeinated.